Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We're going to kick off our meeting tonight. Firstly, Clause 91(4) of the Governance and Meeting Conduct Local Law provides the following. This public meeting is being recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be retained by Council in accordance with Council's legal obligations. As a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. Acknowledgers of traditional owners. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to the elders of other communities who may be not with us today, or who are with us today. Thank you. Could we stand if you wish for the opening prayer? Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide this council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people whom we serve. Amen. No acceptance and apologies or granting of leave of absence. We'll go straight into our order of business. And there is no confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting. Can we have a mover for that, please? Councillor Clark, seconder, Councillor Benton. There's no... oh yes, sorry, all those in favour of those minutes, thank you. Thank you. All in favour. Okay, there's no reception of petitions and hearing of deputations. Presentation of council reports. And council reports I will hand over to our CEO, Brendan McGrath.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have just one item to report on your behalf. You'll see in front of me, just to my left, is the certificate of appreciation that was presented to the Mayor today by a member of Victoria Police in our region. That certificate is to recognise our council's contribution and participation to a recent event held by Victoria Police. The Chief of Commissioner Graham Ashton and Wayne Gatt, who is in charge of the Police Association, recently did a head-to-head walk, which was a fundraiser for mental health for Victoria Police, past and present, to support those struggling with mental health issues. The walk covered 1,000 kilometres with both men starting at separate ends of the state. The Chief Commissioner started at Mallacoota and Wayne Gatt started at Mildura. They met at the midway point between those two locations, which was actually in Wangaratta, the finishing point for their event. So we helped out with a range of things, including some traffic control, the preparation of the park, and some logistics around the running of the welcome event. And the Mayor was certainly there and said a few words on behalf of Council, and overall it was a very successful event. So this certificate was presented today just to thank the Council for its contribution to that very worthy event.
Thank you, Brendan. We'll move on to officer reports.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a motion to shift 14.3.
Sorry,
Very sorry. Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a motion to shift item 14.3 to be the first item tonight, because I believe this item is one of the most important ones we have tonight.
Okay. Do we have a seconder to move that motion forward? Councillor Fuller. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll pass it over to Jamie.
Thank you. So this indeed is one of the most important things that we will be dealing with, and indeed our Youth Council fills a very important role for us, both at Council but also in our community. So tonight is our annual appointment of our Youth Council members. So we have many of them in our audience here tonight. So the recommendation before Council tonight is to appoint the following individuals to represent their peers in the 2019 Rural City Wangaratta Youth Council. So I'm just going to read the names out, and then we'll actually pause momentarily so that we can have a photo with the Youth Council members and the council laws. So Toby Miliankos King, Chloe Dow, Georgia O'Connor, Layla Creek, Alana Bagley, Shivanti Pereira, Rachel Fisher, Matthew Stone, Oscar Day and Peter Sang. So congratulations everybody and welcome to the 2019 Youth Council. We get the pleasure of seeing you lots in our office as you have your meetings and run your events and it's always very exciting to watch you go throughout the 12 months and see what you do. So that's the recommendation for Council tonight.
Thanks, Jamie. Can we have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Fitzpatrick, and a seconder, Councillor Clark. Thank you. All those in favour to move? Sorry. Yes, sorry, there. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
First, I just want to say congratulations, guys. It's really exciting to be on the Youth Council and you're going to learn a lot of leadership skills and advocate for the younger community. So congratulations. I think it's fantastic. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzpatrick. Anybody else like to talk on that? Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back in the 1970s, I was a youth councillor as well. And it might have been a fairly long lead time between junior council and senior council. But I hope before I'm dead to see some of you up here at this table. And I think it's very, very important. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just confirm then, if nobody else wants to talk on the situation, I'll confirm Councillor Clark as a mover and a seconder. Councillor Fitzpatrick was the mover and seconder. Councillor Clark, thank you. All those in favour? Right, guys, congratulations, you're in. Well done. Now, do you want to get up and have a photo now with any of the councillors or myself? More than happy to do that. If you want to do that now, Tom, do you want to do that before we continue? And if you want to stay on, we appreciate it if you wanted to stay on for the rest of the meeting, but you are welcome to leave if you so. What do you want to do? Do you want to do it sort of here and have us councillors stand up, or do you want to have it together? Or
this is where you need comms here. I'm not a photographer. Maybe if we just stand across the front, I'll stand up a little bit.
Just trying to stand around the sort of table like we're sitting and around, and we'll just come out a little bit further. And
I'll take the lens cap off, yeah?
Yeah.
Great, Tom. Can I also get one with all the other councillors in?
Absolutely.
I just feel we're a team here together, and we'll be as a team with our youth council as well. Please come around, everybody. There's a few tall blokes here, so we better.
We might do some kind of staggered approach.
Yeah.
People at the front, perhaps. Otherwise, you're really testing your skills.
I'll stand at the back. Councillor Curry, you can stand. You can stand at the back too, mate.
I feel like you need to
Oh, stand right in the middle there.
Oh,
Oh, we go.
Are we
Move around just a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
That's a wonderful thing. That's perfect.
Great, thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue on now. Thank you, Councillor Bussell, for bringing that item forward for our Youth Council. I'll now move into 12.1. This is a memorandum of understanding between the Wangaratta City Council and the Benalla Rural City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is really just attempting to put some formality around a practice that already exists pretty well in the North East. I think all of the councils in North East Victoria have long had a great reputation for collaborating closely and working well together. our former Mayor, Councillor Clark, and Benella's former Mayor, Councillor Firth, 12 months or so ago, I think, started some conversations about formalising our good relationship. So this MOU really just provides a framework which encourages councils to look for opportunities to share resources and undertake projects together where it might be of benefit to both councils. And the recommendation is on the screen.
Thank you, Brendan. Any comment from the audience? Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation. Certainly, it's been something that the previous Mayor of Benalla and myself have been working upon, and I'm very pleased to see it come to the council for ratification. So I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Fuller? You seconded, thank you. Anyone else like to comment on that?
Yes, Mr Mayor. In supporting this motion, we feel in the community that have a bit of nervousness at times, how close we get to our neighbours because of the events that took possibly some 20 years ago. But in the policy that we have written, and I'd just like to read it out, it does not override each council's independence or sense of sovereignty, and that's one of the major things that in supporting the motion that I do support it now fully in its intent.
Thank you. No other comment from councillors? We'll vote please. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Corporate services, leasing and licensing policy. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this is regarding a new leasing and licensing policy for council. This report is presented to council to consider placing the recently created leasing and licensing policy on exhibition, seeking feedback from the community. The aim of the policy is to provide a consistent, equitable and transparent approach for entering into formal tenure arrangements with other parties for their occupation of council-owned and or managed assets, to ensure the best possible outcome is achieved for the community. The details of the recommendation are on the screen, but there's just a couple of other things I just wanted to note regarding our considerations for introducing this, this policy, which we felt we needed as we currently have numerous property agreements in place with our various community groups and sporting groups which don't currently follow a consistent approach, and in particular regarding rental amounts. We recognise there are some changes proposed here for community groups, and we want to ensure those groups that in drafting this policy there are a number of factors we've considered. So one is making sure that we have a clear and consistent pricing model to make it as simple as possible, so it's easy for everyone to understand. To take into consideration where some groups do have the ability to make additional income either through liquor licenses, events, or through having access to additional funding sources, and to support those clubs a bit more who don't have that level of access. And in part to ensure the service remains sustainable, so that we can obviously continue as council to provide this service, which previous kind of $1 peppercorn amounts just don't allow for. So we are looking to just get a bit of a contribution to the administrative costs that we incur to manage to provide this service longer term. Overall, we've looked to set affordable prices which at the highest bracket equate to, I think, a coffee a week effectively, which we felt was reasonable and has been benchmarked with other local and comparable councils. So that's just to share a bit of the thought process in setting out this policy. And so the recommendation is that council goes forward with the points above.
Thank you, Sarah. Any comment from the floor? Okay. Can I have a movement to continue to move this forward? Councillor Bussell, seconder. Councillor Fuller. Would anyone like to talk on this? Councillor Bussell, before you first. Anybody else? Thank you, Councillor Bussell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a very important policy because we've been all over the shop with rents and things. I do have some concerns with the numbers. And so I would invite the public to give feedback, and that's important. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Curry, I will allow you to talk.
Actually, I think Harry really beat me to the punch. I think the overall fees that we're looking to increase is really, like we said, it's a coffee a week. It's not that great. There are some small increases as the years go on, but it's to be kept within inflation terms. So once again, it is pretty minor. I'm looking at clubs that have been associated with myself, around the cycling club and so forth, and I know they're very tight for funds. I still think that those fees are still quite reasonable even within those tight funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll vote now. All those in favour of adopting this policy?
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes.
a point of order.
Yes?
Councillor Russell moved the motion, therefore he's entitled to speak.
Yes?
He hasn't closed the debate.
That's correct. Did you want to close the... You're okay? Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, it's voting to put it on exhibition and then we come back in February to adopt the policy.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So all those in favour? This motion is carried. Okay, 14.1 Mitchell Avenue Children's Garden. Thank you, Jane.
So this report relates to the updated concept plans for the Mitchell Avenue Reserve, specifically for the children's garden design that has been conducted. So this is a site that Council has been working on for a number of years now and working closely with the community and particularly the surrounding primary schools. The draft concept plans received a great deal of feedback from the neighbourhood and the community, and we worked closely with the primary school students to get their feedback as well around what they would like to see in the community garden. So the recommendation before Council tonight is that Council notes the feedback received from the community during the consultation and that Council adopts the concept plans for the Mitchell Avenue Reserve Children's Garden, and that Council considers the project during the 2019-20 budget deliberations for implementation during the 19-20 financial year.
Thank you, Jamie. Any comment from the floor on that one there? Yes, thank you.
You'd be disappointing.
And come forward. I'll get you to state your name and so proud resident of Wangaratta. Thank you.
And Dunstan of Tarrawingi. I would like to congratulate the staff for the very detailed consultation period that they did. I think they also need to be recognised because I think every child at both primary schools told you they wanted a swimming pool back. Regardless of the fact that you have put a concept plan up for a garden, they all want the pool reincorporated. So that would have been a very challenging thing to have combated in those classrooms. My comment would be the fact that the recommendation says that it notes the feedback received from the community, and then you go further into the document and it says that there are only a very few minor changes that will be made, whereas there's other feedback that has been received, and it really doesn't look like you're considering those options in the whole master plan, in phrasing it the way that it phrases in the recommendation versus the actual document. That there are some quite significant suggestions from the community and only minor elements are being considered, and even then those minor changes are a bit wishy-washy in the respect that it says that it doesn't have a tunnel plan, whereas they're going to see if it can be incorporated, so it's all a bit vague. So that was probably my comment in relation to how the document is presented. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for your comments. Okay, any comments from the floor? Thank you. Can I have a, sorry. Okay, fire away with your question, Harry, before we move it.
My question, Mr. Mayor, is for Jamie about what work has been done with snakes in this park. There will be snakes live in this park, so that's a given. And what work have you done to manage that risk?
So following the conversation that we had at briefing around and some of the comments that had been received from both councillors and also some concerns from the community, the team did do some looking into the snake situation, and I'm sure that all of us in this room have experienced snakes living in a rural environment. There have been a couple of reports already of snakes in that area. It's along a creek bed and it is a natural habitat. We have looked at options around the installation of signage that would warn parents that there may be snakes within the area. The situation is that there's likely snakes there already, and it is already a significant play space for children, so this garden is likely to activate it more and perhaps deter snakes somewhat, but there will be the opportunity for us to install signage. The snakes are part of a rural community. So.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Not really, but that's okay.
Okay, can I have a mover for this recommendation of 14.1, please? Councillor Fitzpatrick and Councillor Fuller to second it. Any comment, councillors? Councillor Fuller.
I think this is the beginning of a terrific redevelopment of the space. It complements the nearby splash park, and it's great to see the development in the Wangaratta side of town. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fuller. Anybody else? Councillor Bustle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not recommending for 50 shovels to be around the dom snakes, and I'm not going to do that. But I'd certainly like to see some fencing around at some stage in this. I'd like to see it considered.
Thanks, Councillor Bustle. Councillor Curry.
Once again, growing up on this side of town, you know, this is just an awesome thing that's going to be developed for the community. I can see just with the whole plan that's going to be rolled out over there for a period of time. I think I was sitting around last night talking to other councillors about my time over that particular side and literally playing down that whole side. There's a track down there, and I can just really see that it's just going to add to the value and the community culture that will be on that side of town. But there is one thing I'd like to know is the entire time growing up there for 16 years, I never once seen a snake down that particular lane. So anyway, as time goes on.
Thanks, Councillor. We'll have a vote on that. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. 14.2, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. This report refers to some nominations for representation on 2 of our Section 86 special committees of management. So our special committees of council are responsible for a range of functions and work very closely with the community and council around management and maintenance of facilities. And they do a terrific job, and it's a huge amount of work for these community people, and it's a significant amount of volunteer hours. So the recommendation for council tonight is that council appoints the following representatives to Section 86 special committees of management for the Everton Hall and Sporting Complex, Ruth Kneebone and Noel Kneebone, and for the Rowley Public Library Hall, Pauline McPherson.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor on that one? No? Thank you. Can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Bustle and Councillor Fuller to second it. Any comment, please? Councillor Fuller.
I just want to acknowledge it's great to see Ruth, our ex-director, that's part of the community still and contributing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bustle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. These Section 86 committees are very, very, very important. These are community-minded people that work tirelessly in their communities, and we have 20-something Section 86 committees. And so I just want to congratulate these 3 people and all the other people on our Section 86 committees, because they're just absolute treasures. That's just me.
Thank you. There's no other comments? So all those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 14.3 we've already done earlier on tonight. So we'll now move on to infrastructure services at number 15.1, the Oven Street Civil and Electrical Works. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Mayor. So this report is brought to Council to consider awarding the contract for the civil and electrical work in Oven Street. This work was tendered some time ago as a larger package which included work in King George V Gardens, the concrete paving and the work included in this report. We didn't receive any tenders, so we split it up into more manageable projects and have gone out again. This work will tie in with the work that was completed several years ago now on the coastal side of Oven Street. It'll have the matching concrete, it'll get our street lights back in place, etc. And it will provide better linkage for our pedestrians, including 2 pedestrian crossings across Oven Street. So the recommendation tonight is on the screen, but in short it's to award the contract for this civil and electrical works to XL Grey Brunei, authorise the CEO to sign and seal the documents and to disclose the contract price.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions from the floor? No questions on this one?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, to move the recommendation. A seconder, please. Councillor Fuller, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Fox, we've already, you'll have to bring your question up in general business because we have already asked for questions and you did put your hand up. So I'll continue on. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that's been around for a long, long time, and I've certainly been pursuing to get something done on this side of Oven Street. I've had, I would say, 100 emails from one certain ratepayer regarding it, and I still haven't changed my mind that we need to remove the diseased trees, we need to widen Oven Street, and we need to get on with doing the job. And really, I think that the sooner we do it, the better off we're going to be.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors like to comment? Councillor Fuller?
Just echoing that, we do need to remove these diseased trees. It's good that we do it all together in order to maintain new trees growing at the same rate. And also, whilst I felt we should retain the 45-degree angle, I understand that with the work that we're going to be doing in Rowan Street, that we'll be able to gain those lost car parks in a better way. So it's good to see it going ahead finally.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark, do you want to finish off? You okay? Anybody else before we finalise?
I'd like to
Mr. Fox, there is no question. You can certainly ask your question at question time. I did ask for public questions for a number of seconds. Can you please sit down in your seat? We will not listen.
You will not listen?
We will not, but you can raise your question in public question time. I have stated that I asked if anybody wanted to raise a question. It was no. No one replied. You have had your chance. Please take your seat.
Mr. Mayor.
Please take your seat, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
You are welcome to your 2 questions at general business, and I'm happy to listen to your questions. On this item, obviously you weren't paying attention here. I did ask, and it was clear. Thank you. There was no other councillors here that wanted to say anything? No? Thank you. All those in favour of proceeding? The motion is carried. Thank you.
I need to give you the contract amount.
Please, Alan.
That contract amount is $463,407.90, excluding GST.
Thank you, Alan. You happy to move on now with 15.2, Alan?
Yes, certainly. So 15.2, we bring this report to Council to consider awarding 2 contracts, which is a little unusual in one report. But These two projects have been designed and developed to this stage as one, under one budget umbrella, but after we award these contracts we will be splitting it out into two. So this is the Oswaldstone Sicily Road intersection and the extension of Cruise Street across the creek right through to Reef Road, which is part of our development northwest growth area and our development contribution plan. So it's a very significant project. As I said, it's been designed as one to ensure that we have everything lined up correctly, but we will split it out now. So firstly, the intersection. It's worth noting at this point our procurement policy requires any project that we estimate to be over $1 million to have a probity auditor appointed. So we've had independent probity auditors appointed to each of these projects, and their role is to ensure that we follow a due process and that we apply the evaluation criteria that we've advertised. The probity auditor has come back and given us the tick on both of these processes. So the intersection has been completed. It's an important part of opening up that growth area. The tender has come back and the tender we're recommending is within budget and very close to our estimate for this project. With the road and the bridge, it wasn't envisaged that we'd complete all of this work in this financial year. In fact, it was envisaged we wouldn't be going out to tender until about March, April and just commencing this financial year. It was always going to be a long project. So not all the money for this project is in this year's budget, some was always going to be in next year's. As to the estimates for this project, they're all included in the development contribution plan. And this is really important because this plan will enable council to recover these funds, but it only allows us to recover the funds that are detailed in the plan. If we complete the work at a higher expense, we can't recover it. If we complete the work at a lesser expense, we can't recoup that money. So it's important that it was close, and it's turned out that it's indeed very close. So the amounts detailed in the DCP almost perfectly match the amount that we'll be recommending today, which is a great result. We're ahead of schedule because we've been able to complete some difficult processes, which was the land acquisition, the detailed design for this very extensive job, and also the cultural heritage work. We've done some cultural heritage work some time ago, and some artefacts were found, and we were required to have a detailed plan to recover those artefacts and remove them to another location. We didn't think we'd be able to complete that work till February. We're in the driest part of the year, which is when recovery works best. Given the season we've had, we've been able to complete that work earlier than scheduled, and that work's been completed, and any artefacts have been removed under the supervision of the local RAP. So we're now ready to proceed and award these tenders. So the recommendation is on the board, but essentially it's to award the Oswaldstone Road and Sicily Avenue intersection to O'Loughlin Excavations, and to award the construction of Cruise Street and the three-span bridge to Macca Infrastructure, authorise the CEO to sign and seal those documents, and then to disclose the contract price. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Thank you. Councillors, can someone move this motion, please? Councillor Bussell, and seconded Councillor Curry. Thank you. Would anyone, councillor, like to talk on this? Councillor Bussell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is probably one of the most exciting projects in Wangaratta's history to open up an area of housing development which will allow this town to grow. And given that we've only grown a very, very small amount in my lifetime, this is an opportunity for this town to grow. And we need to grow in order to have a healthy city. And this road, this bridge, this intersection is the first part, or one of the first parts of that. So I think this is very, very exciting, Mr. Mayor, this project. Thank you.
Any other councillor like to talk on that? Thank you, Councillor Bussell. Then all in. Can we have a vote, please? All those in favour of this motion? Thank you. The motion is carried.
And the contract amounts,
Thank you,
the
Alan.
two contract amounts for the intersection with the on excavations is $1,955,677.05 exclusive, and for the bridge and the Cruise Street Road through to Reith Road, is $7,411,390.83 exclusive.
Glad you got that 3 cents in there, Alan. Thank you. We'll move on to Area 16 Development Services and Stephen Swart on 16.1 Parking in the Nature Strip in Johnson's Lane, Wangaratta petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is about car parking in Johnson's Lane, which is quite a narrow street. We received a petition in October from some residents suggesting that we should provide an exemption to allow parking of 2 wheels of the cars on a footpath. Prior to that, we received some complaints that that type of parking is restricting pedestrian access on the footpaths. We've considered it from a technical point of view. We considered a number of potential parking solutions for Johnson's Lane, and are recommending to allow car parking on the north sides of Johnston's Lane, and then also advise residents of that before we erect any appropriate signage.
Thank you, Stephen. I will ask for questions from the floor, but I'll just read a couple of questions, or a number of questions that we received through the week in relation to this prior to that. I'll read individual questions and get Stephen to answer them as we go through. So Stephen, the first question is, as new residents to Johnson Lane, we wish to pose the following. Why can't vehicles park on the curb without penalty to allow easier access for other residents and particularly emergency vehicles? In our short time here, it has become evident that apart from residents, there is very little pedestrian traffic that use Johnston's Lane. As a senior station officer based at the Wangaratta Fire Station, I know that without allowing vehicles to park this way, there is no way we would be able to get our new Scania pumper down the street for an emergency situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first thing I would want to say is that in terms of allowing parking on footpaths, that's simply not something that is permissible under the road safety rules of Victoria. So that's Victorian legislation which overrules our local laws. We have definitely considered emergency vehicle access as part of our considerations. And we've considered options to allow for easier access for bigger vehicles through Johnston's Lane. We've also consulted with the CFA about the size or the width of their vehicles. They've provided us with some information that's actually documented in the council report. And basically it says that their vehicles typically are about 3 meters wide, but they need 4 meters clearance. So we've considered all those aspects as part of our considerations.
And the recommendation, thank you. That was from Carl and Sharon Stabile. Our second question is from Marianne Sargent. Good morning. I'd like to submit the following questions for the council meeting tonight. Have any of the CMT driven down Johnston's Lane when cars are parked legally and witnessed the difficulties we face daily as residents in trying to get in and out of our driveways? When the cars are staggered, as you are proposing should be in this case, it is almost impossible to reverse out of our driveways, and even more so when we attempt to back a trailer, caravan, boat into our driveways. Thank you, Marianne Sargent. Yours and Sarah.
Yes, so to answer the question whether one of the CMT members have gone down Johnston's Lane, I went down there myself a couple of weeks ago during the day, and I've experienced myself that it is quite a narrow road and not easy to manoeuvre. When I went through there, we had cars parked fully on the road, but also some on the curb, and I understand exactly that it allows for a little bit more room to manoeuvre through there. Just to clarify that we are not recommending staggered parking. We are recommending allowing parking on one side of Johnston's Lane.
Thank you, Stephen. Lastly, to whom it may concern, I have already written to Council regarding my concerns re the parking on the road. However, would like to reinstate my concerns regarding the inconvenience this has caused. I'm unfortunately able to attend this meeting due to a prior commitment, how I would like my concerns noted. Since vehicles have parked flat on the road in the last few months, it has increased the difficulty of gaining vehicle access to my property. I have now been able to enter my driveway on I have now been able to enter my driveway on 4 separate occasions since the information from Council was received. I have lived here for 25 years and can only remember once before having this issue. The issue has been due to there being insufficient space to safely turn into my driveway as a direct consequence of cars being parked entirely on the road. This included one weekend when the road was supposedly closed to non-residents, but road closure signs were not supervised in any way, due to an event at the showgrounds when it was clearly extensively used by those choosing to park here to attend the event. On the other occasions, there have been a range of cars, mostly non-residents, parked extensively towards the Great Street end of Johnson's Lane, which made it too difficult to safely manoeuvre my car into the driveway. It was also challenging to drive through the parked vehicles as there was very little clearance. It would have been difficult for a wider emergency vehicle to use the road. In previous years, property access has not been an issue, as most people who had to park on the road chose to minimise their impact on others by parking with their 2 wheels up on the footpath. They also continued to allow footpath access to people by not parking excessively on the footpath. I would genuinely appreciate that vehicles were again allowed to park up on the footpath and suggest that Council perhaps considers painting a line on the footpath to clarify an allowable distance. Yours truly, Jenny Hopkins.
So I might start by just saying that allowing cars to park up on the footpath is not a legal option available to us at this point in time. I think this question illustrates exactly why we really need to consider alternative car parking arrangement in Johnson's Lane, considering the difficulties that are experiencing or that people are experiencing there. I believe that the recommendation that we've come up with will provide will provide good access to driveways, will also provide for vehicles to have through access in Johnson's Lane, including larger vehicles such as CFA vehicles and other emergency vehicles. Plus, it will also provide access to pedestrians.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll put it back to the floor. Are there any questions in relation to Johnson Lane? Yes, madam, would you like to come up and just state your name and your question, just that you can please sit if you feel. And there's a little mouthpiece there. You can please press that button. It'll light up red. That's it. Thank you.
My name is Diane Hoffard, 1912 Johnston's Lane. Now, I understand that you are, from what you've said, you actually have made a decision about what's going to happen in Johnston's Lane. I would just ask that this decision only be for a pocket of time to see how it works in Johnston's Lane for the residents, because some of those residents, because you want them to park on the north side, some of the residents on the opposite side are still going to have a lot of difficulty getting out of the driveways, especially with caravans and cars and so forth. So I would ask that there be a just recommend that you not pass it fully, that you actually look at down the track, say 6 months' time, to see how residents have actually coped with it.
Diane, I think that's a great suggestion. Is it, Stephen, I'll put this here, is it a test and measure method that this gets approved, it's tested, it's measured, if it works and adopts it will continue, or can it come back to council that way?
I think if it's implemented and it's not working well, we definitely would have to revisit it. I think that is an option for us. Just to clarify, we haven't made a decision at all. It's a recommendation for council to consider tonight.
Thank you, Diane. That's a great question. Thanks. Anybody else like to speak on Johnson Lane while we're here? Right. Council is going to have the...
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. A seconder, please. Councillor Bustle. Thank you. Anybody like to speak on this?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of points in the letters we received today about the parking when we had the Owens and Murray Grand Final, and we did have road closed signs, but if you remember the Jazz Festival weekend, we also had road signs out to stop people getting down into Merriwa Park, and people that just ignore road closed signs, and that's obviously what's happened in Johnson Lane. It is a narrow street, and I think that the residents should be given some responsibility and just have parking on one side of the road.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a common sense solution here, but having said that, if it doesn't work, any decision that we make can be changed again. That's our right to do that. And so clearly in 12 months' time, if you feel that this is not working, if this passes, then we can certainly have a look at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Curry with a question.
Just to clarify, the reason that this came about was a complaint from a pedestrian with an issue because they couldn't go down the pathway. Is that correct? So, and it was a local person from that particular street. Don't know. I think given that there are complaints in there that we have to address everybody, and like you said, that the law states it's pretty clear that we can't park on pedestrians. So,
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Nobody else wanting to say anything there, or no? All those in favour of proceeding with this motion? Thank you. The motion is carried. Number 18, advisory committee reports. Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Given that both of these are relatively straightforward administrative items, I'm going to outline item 18.1 and 19.1 at the same time. 18.1 deals with minutes from various advisory committees of the council, largely through November, and asks council notes those. And item 19.1 asks council receives assemblies of councils for records of meetings held through November and December.
I think you have any comments from the floor in relation to these advisory committees? No? Councillors? Councillor Clark to move that motion. A seconder, please. Councillor Curry. Anybody like to comment? Yep, this is 18.1 and 19.1 combined. Thank you. All those in favour? The two motions, 18.1 and 19.1, are carried. No notice of motions. Urgent business? There is none. Public question time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we get underway with public question time, as your mayor, this public question time will be controlled by me. There is 2 questions, otherwise we all have families to go home to. 2 questions per person per night. I will reinstate or will state that this is public question time. This is not statement time to have a go at council. There are plenty of avenues in which to write, as a number of you do, to us, to email us, to ring all of us councillors, that our phone numbers are on public display in all the newspapers. If your grievances cannot be answered by us councillors, you can bring them here and we will answer them in the public forum. 2 of them. If you are not satisfied, and I close you down because your question is a statement, we have public media authorities here tonight. If you feel that they will listen to your statement and put it in the paper to air, by all means you can talk to them or any other newspaper or media outlet that will be available to you. Again, I will reinstate or will state, reinstate that there is 2 questions, as per my predecessor, Councillor Clark did, and they will be questions, not statements. But you are welcome to talk to all councillors on an individual basis at any time. Thank you. I look forward to your questions now. Is there any questions from the floor? Please hop up and come and...
I'll go first.
Good on you, mate. Thank you. Push the button and state your name and your question. Look forward to it.
Yeah, my name's Chris Balfour from Carville, and firstly I'd like to wish us all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year for the upcoming. But for now, I have 2 questions for the Assembly. The first one being, Council has secured government and ratepayer funds of approximately $850,000 for the construction of commercial hangars out at the airport. I understand that now a location has been identified for the construction of those hangars. Can Council provide us with an update of when the tenders will be called for, when construction may commence? Have we got tenants for that construction, for those buildings? And will it in any way allow the now release of land for private hangars?
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris, for your question. You're very clever. That was 1 question, but I think there might have been 7 or 8 answers. It's very carefully crafted. Stephen Swart and I recently met with the new president and another representative of the Aero Club to try and resolve what has been an issue that's dragged on a bit. It's fair to say the Aero Club still has some reservations around the exact final location of the new commercial hangars and some questions about what impact that final location might have on their current location. So in short, what we've agreed to do is get a couple of representatives from their group together with a couple of reps of our team. We've agreed that we would secure the services of kind of an independent expert on things like CASA regulations, so that we can have clarity about what categories and classifications things needed to be, and therefore clearances and those types of questions, which at the moment are a bit up in the air, particularly for the Aero Club, no pun intended. So our intent is to have that discussion very quickly, and that will enable us to make a final decision about the absolute location of the new hangars. In the meantime, our economic development team is talking to a number of potential tenants of those buildings about their specific requirements. So we should be able to bring all of that to some sort of conclusion pretty quickly once we've had that final roundtable with the Aero Club about final design, various things that will fall out of that final design and what impact they do or don't have on the Aero Club. In relation to private hangars, we have been continuing to receive some expressions of interest from people who want to develop new private hangars. Part of the work we'll do with that independent person that I just spoke about is to make sure we get absolute clarity about minimum requirements. So, for example, do we have to have sealed taxiways for them to private hangar locations, or is that just preferred rather than required? Do we need services like power and water to those hangars, or can they be unserviced? So just help us provide some final detail around what's required versus what's desirable, and also help us finalise the actual scope and design of those things, so that any infrastructure we need to provide to get to those, we can have properly scoped up and priced and constructed if indeed they're actually necessary.
Chris, does that answer that, most of that question?
I'm happy with that.
Second question?
I'm asking about the information purely because getting information out of the Aero Club is like getting money out of the bank account. It just doesn't happen. My second question, the master plan was put out for public comment of 2018, early 2018, identified as a cost-saving measure the closure or decommissioning of the non-directional beacon out of the airport, which is currently situated on private land, which the council actually leased back. The problem is it was decommissioned in 2016, being obsolete. My question is council aware of that, and have they taken any steps to remove those towers so ratepayers aren't paying for land for a service that's no longer there?
Unfortunately, I don't actually know the answer to that one, so I'll have to follow that up.
Well, your predecessor certainly did.
Well, I don't.
Thanks, Chris. We'll get Stephen. Is it all right if Stephen gives you a call directly to inform you in a very short term whether they do or not?
Yep.
Great. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your questions. Any further questions from the floor tonight? Please, sir, come on up. One moment, Mr. Fox, just behind you first. Thank you, sir. Just come and sit down, and Chris has left the microphone on, which is great. It's already on. You've just turned it off, sir.
We got it off.
That's it. Just your name and...
My name is John Allen, and I'm a member of the committee at St John's. And my question is the same question as I made at Tarawinji, and I just wondering if we any nearer to the parking area outside St John's. There are a few comments that I could make, but I'll skip those. If you could give me an answer of impending time.
Thank you, John. I think at this stage the answer is still the same. We've designed that work. It's being presented to Council as a project to be considered for next year's budget, but until that budget discussion takes place, I can't give you a time. If indeed it is included in next year's budget, as I said, things are designed ready to go so we can go out early in the financial year.
There is one particular thing that I have brought up since the 8 weeks have gone by, and that is the egress from the driveway is dangerous, very, very dangerous, and there are 40 or 50 cars using it per day. To look at traffic coming from the west is nigh impossible until you have your car well and truly on the bitumen, ready to intrude further with your car, because of cars being parked at an angle on the west side. Just more recently, the council agreed to put shifter signs, which were done on the but I tried them out myself the other day, and it is dangerous the way it is. There are cars still parking on the footpath. That is, as was just said a little while ago, don't want to hear about cars parking on the footpath, don't want lines on the footpath, don't want to know about cars on the footpath, either do I. And I expect everybody else to be of the same idea.
So John, your question would be, can council do anything about cars parking on the footpath in those areas and the egress? Is that, Alan, and I'll put this one to you, is that a situation that is a St John's village requirement for them to fix that? Certainly cars parking on the footpath, Stephen, we could look at. So Alan, I'll leave it to you.
I think the problem is caused by the way people park at the moment. If we get this project up and running, we'll regulate the parking and we'll
curb and channeling.
We'll fix the problem.
So. It's a sore that's been going on for a while, and that sort of thing. And I made a mistake when I said that there was $300,000 had been poured into the kitty from the grandpas and grandmas like myself. It was 364,000 because would you believe the council are taking fees from the 31 units? And if somebody would like to speak to me about it after this meeting, I'll just tell you exactly the very, very funny side of that. But thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, John, for your questions. I appreciate your good work here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fox, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, Alan. Just to get a little bit more clarification on that, and it's an area that I'm really looking at in consideration at the same time. So when you say that, is the planning and everything ready to go? what stage are we exactly at?
So we've done the design.
Yeah.
From the technical side, we're ready to go. I don't think any planning permit would be required. So it's just a matter of funding. We put the project up last year, it didn't make the cut, so we're putting it up again this coming financial year.
So is there any way that it can come through to the budget review to look after the next 6 months?
There's always a way, yes. So if that's what council wishes, it could be looked at as part of the mid-year budget review, yes.
Thank you.
And I'm sure John might phone individual councils to make sure it gets through into our budget at some stage there, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll hear us singing the dance from the Winges.
Mr. Fox, you had your hand up there, Brian.
Brian Fox. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I wonder what your understanding is of the contract that's just been let for, Mr. Mayor, are you listening to?
I am listening to you, looking at some notes in relation to your question here.
I just wonder what the understanding, your understanding of the motion that was just let for 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not the best of hearing, but what I heard from Alan was about the contract had now been divided into two, and he was talking about electrical works. My question is that contract that has been let this evening give the contractor permission to knock those 7 trees down in Ovens Street? That's my question. Yes, or no?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. That's the answer to your question. That is correct. Next question.
So just clear this, the contractor can now knock those trees down. They're not a problem.
Correct.
Correct. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Seeing we're not going to accept criticisms, perhaps we could accept a little congratulations. I was delighted to see this evening when I came in, we had a sandwich board out the front that said there was a meeting on. The other thing I'd like to congratulate you about, well, the council about, is the appearance of so many excellent footpaths leading into the city. I thank you.
I thank you, Mr. Fox. Thank you for your time. Any further questions from the floor? Mr. Jones, thank you. Please come forward.
Lights on.
Yes, is there any chance of trying to improve the accessibility over the Ovens River? Could the traffic bridge be put down on the end of the Ovens Street itself? Because the more it develops here, it's going to be more congested and potentially dangerous trying to cross over at the end of Faithful and Murphy Street.
Good question there. I might hand that over to Alan to see what has been discussed at some stage. Thanks.
Brian, I think this has been discussed for many years. It's not on the table at the moment. It's not on any plans. It's not on our plans, and it's not on any state plans. And I don't think we'll see what people refer to as a second bridge over the Ovens for many years, if indeed ever. The way the state reviews it, they view that we have a second crossing. They talk about the Hume Freeway as being the second crossing. I know people, some people living in Wangaratta want a second crossing right in town. If we had the second bridge, where you suggest at the end of Ovens Street, it wouldn't do anything to clear congestion in the CBD, because indeed it is in the CBD. Over the years, there's been sites looked at further downstream, but as you know, the floodplain widens out and it becomes extremely difficult. So I don't think there's any preferred option, and I don't think there's any group at all pushing for that second crossing at this point.
Well, the reason why I mentioned it, on one occasion when I was coming in from the north side, a light truck broke down right at the roundabout, and luckily a front end loader was following him, so he dropped the bucket and pushed it around the corner. On another occasion, there was a car travelling on Faithful Street like that and it broke down. and there's about a half a dozen pushing it, including the girl, and you've got that side to try and get around the corner. But they're the sort of things that will happen, and it needs to be addressed properly.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any further questions from the floor? Anne Dunstan, please come forward. And you two have two questions. Your previous question was in relation to another matter.
So this is
Through
to
the-
follow up on that same topic. A perfect example of why a second crossing should be considered is 3 years ago, show night, fireworks, flooding, Levy Bank broke. That road was closed, and you have 90% of Wangaratta trying to get out of town, and most people didn't use common sense to go out to the Hume Highway, so you had an awful lot of traffic stuck in town, and you would have remembered the disaster that followed that.
The second bridge there would not have gone, though, would it?
No, it wouldn't have, but if it...
Was somewhere.
Yeah, and probably just because probably do need to be aware that that is, there is no signage and common sense isn't so common. So, yeah, there probably should have been better signage and even possibly an announcement at the show or on the Facebook apps and things like that, because people were looking for information on that particular night.
Thanks, Anne. Nothing further from the gallery? Councillor Russell, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Alan Clark. The rural city haven't built and sealed roads for about a decade. And in the last year's budget, we put about $500,000 in to build and seal a road. And my question to Alan is, where are we at with that road? Where's it been built? How's it going?
Thanks, Councillor Bussell. So the road that money was allocated to this year, and it was really done as a trial to test our ability, one, to build the road and what sort of unit rate, so how much a kilometre it would cost us to build this sort of road with our own equipment and own staff. So the road that's being constructed is the Springhurst-Burraman Road. It links, completes a sealed length, so there was 3.2 kilometres of unsealed road that was linking Springhurst across to the Burraman Road there. So we've gone ahead, we constructed that road about 12 weeks ago and did all the table drain work, constructed the pavement, put new culverts into properties. We left that road under traffic for that time, and there was no faults appeared, so in the last 2 days we've been sealing that road. We've sealed about 2/3 of that road. We've sealed about half of that road at the moment. We expect to get it a bit more done tomorrow before the rains come. I think the rains are going to defeat us from completing the whole bit before Christmas, which is unfortunate, but we expect to have about 2/3 completed tomorrow. That's with a double seal, so it's what we call a 14 mil stone and then a 7 mil stone. That's gone down really well in the last couple of days, so it's looking good. Once to do that work, we're dependent on getting an emulsion tanker onto site. We know we won't be able to get that back before Christmas, so that last third won't be completed until early next calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's very good, Alan. I'd like to congratulate your team for being able to deliver a project like that, because I know our rural constituents very, very much appreciate having better roads than they've had in the past. And I look forward in the next year of when we do our next road. That will be exciting. And I also look forward to seeing the traffic study that's been done to see which roads actually deserve to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just put back to all us councillors here. Is there anything that you'd like to say in relation to anything prior to the close of our meeting here tonight? Ladies and gentlemen, this is my first official meeting as your mayor. After spending the last 2 weeks of being voted in as the mayor, I have a lot more appreciation for our former mayor, who has always been a good friend, but has been hard working, and the amount of time that he had put into this council and to the public of Wangaratta is certainly worth noting. It does take a lot of work, and I have a young family, and it's very, very time consuming. I appreciate the role, and I will continue the role as I enjoy it. In closing off our council meeting here tonight, on behalf of our family at council, and it is a family, we wish you all a Merry Christmas and a safe holiday season from our council family. Thank you, and I'll declare our meeting closed. Have a great night.
So I do get them done.